Hello, everybody. Welcome to our review of Jumanji: The Next Level, or as I like to call it, Tumanji.
Thank you. I was waiting for the pun.
I'm sure everyone's making that pun. I'm sure everyone's making that pun. I couldn't resist.
The pun was in the air. You felt it too. I know you did.
It was just hanging there. I had to grab it. I'm Dan Murrell.
I'm Roth Cornet.
And we're back 2 years later. We're going back to Jumanji again, after we went back there 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's again and again, all over again.
All over again. Jumanji: The Next Level. I don't want to go too far into like exactly the circumstances, but the trailers have given away enough. But we have our intrepid gang of youngsters, along with two new members of the crew, played by Danny DeVito and Danny Glover, jumping back into Jumanji, some of them in different bodies, and going on another adventure, Roth.
I know. And you know what? I think you said this before we started shooting, and it's true. Every Danny is precious to us.
These two Dannys particularly are both national treasures.
Yes.
The Dannys, DeVito and Glover.
Yeah, I mean, this Dan, those Dans, all the Dans, and the impersonations of the Dans were particularly, some of them more delightful than others, but I thought they were all really well done. I will say, in the last film, I think Jack Black was given a lot to do. He was given a lot to do again, which was really delightful and a great use of Jack Black. But I think that actually Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart were given a little more to do in this one, and particularly Kevin Hart, who I thought really shone in his challenge. And I won't say which characters are which, because that's part of the fun of this one. They're playing with that a little bit and kind of going against expectations. What this second one has to overcome, like any sequel, is that the first one was a surprise. You know, I think we went in thinking, oh, this will be whatever it is, but it ended up being a really fun, very entertaining hour and a half or so.
Yeah.
And they had to do that again and then up the ante, which I think they largely did, but it suffers a little bit for me from sequelitis. It's a lot of a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I enjoyed it, but it's diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because you can't, that concept in the first one of there's these people and they're trapped in these bodies, that discovery you can only do once, at least as far as these characters discovering those, so you have to sort of switch it up as far as like, okay, well, we're going to put different characters. But it felt like in the process, they would get 30 or 45 minutes in and they would run out of ideas for what to do. And they're like, all right, we got to kind of switch things up a little bit. And then they, shuffle some stuff around. And there's definitely some humor to be had from it. There's definitely some funny moments. But it is a not as, for me, it was a not as entertaining version of the first movie with some new cast members. It's what you get a lot of times with a blockbuster sequel. It's like, okay, well, I feel like I've seen this before.
Right, because they're not actually... Here's the thing in the first movie is that I think they really, each of these teenagers learned something from the avatar, of their given avatar. They took something away from it. And it was very classical coming of age teen, but, sort of Breakfast Club. These group of misfits come together and we have so much in common after all. And I learned through experiencing empathy, which is basically embodying someone else and experiencing what they experience. Harder to do that again. So in this one, they kind of focused on healing a couple of broken relationships, and they did try some different things. I just think it was too much. I think if they had tightened the story a bit, the runtime I don't think is particularly long in and of itself. It just felt long because things became repetitive.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes with the sequel, especially with Jumanji, as you mentioned, it wasn't necessarily the last one, Welcome to the Jungle. It wasn't necessarily engineered to be a franchise. I think Sony would have loved it, but they didn't make it with the intention of like, this is going to have a sequel. And so sometimes when you have that, you have to undo stuff from the last movie in order to make this movie even make sense, because why would any of them ever do this again? It defies logic. And so I feel like you have to do this thing of like, these things happened off screen that we never got to see and that they just talk about, because they have to do those things because it undoes things that sets up other things for this to make sense. They actually pull at a thread at the very end of this movie. They tug on something that I think actually would have been a better idea for the sequel than this movie. But I also feel like they're like, we've got these stars, we've got Jack Black and Dwayne Johnson and Karen Gillan and Kevin Hart, and they're all great. And you have other stars who I don't think have been in the promotional materials that show up, so I won't say who they are. There's a horse.
I do like the horse.
The horse is pretty cool. Not enough horse.
Not enough horse. That's a complaint.
That's a complaint of mine. I'll lodge that officially. Not enough horse. But I feel like it really kind of felt as if they were sort of playing it safe in the sense of like, we could try this different thing.
Yeah.
But we really just want to try to remix what we already did. And it feels like that. I feel like, I think when we did our review of the other one, my recommendation is like, sure, why not? I think my recommendation on this one would be like, yeah, okay.
I think if you liked the first film, they have smartly used the tools of video games. I was talking with a friend afterwards, better than most video games movies do. Yeah. And I think that if you're a fan of these actors, particularly the main four, but also there's some new friends, the Dannys. Yeah. You'll probably enjoy the movie. It's fun. It's funny. There's some entertaining action sequences in it. I wouldn't say innovative in and of themselves, but they certainly use the world that they're in.
One in particular involving multi-levels and stuff. Like, I wish that there had been more, because you're right, the other ones are just sort of generic action sequences. I mean, not that they're always difficult to do, but there's one in particular that I was just like, it's smart, and it feels like, oh, okay, now this is taking advantage of the video game world in a way that I wish the rest of the film had done in a better way.
I agree. Yeah, that one in particular is riffing on it. So I think it's entertaining. I think it's a fun movie. I think it's a fine family movie. Everyone can kind of go and enjoy it. These actors are notably very, very charming. I wish they had taken, to your point, not necessarily an extreme risk, where you kind of have to blank slate it. But I think that they would have evolved. I wish they would have evolved the characters a little more rather than just resetting them in a sense, which is also like a video game. Yes. Resetting them to do it for a do-over. That's the piece that I wish that they had smartly weaved into the script. Yeah. And I think people like Miller and Lord notably know how to do that. But other than that, it's entertaining. It's fun.
Yeah. It's a diminished version of the original, which doesn't make it unwatchable, but I do wish that there had been more risk and innovation. There isn't. It's all right. Like I said, if you like the first one, you're probably going to like this one. It's just a lot of the surprise is gone. There is some fun to be had with Danny Glover and Danny DeVito, and Kevin Hart particularly embodying Danny Glover is funny. And I think The Rock struggled the tiniest bitty bit as far. I just don't know if this was exactly in his wheelhouse.
It wasn't, and I think the movie knows who to use. Yeah. For the most part, and he probably wanted to stretch. Kevin Hart, I think, nailed it.
Yeah, Kevin Hart does. Yeah.
And Jack Black always does. He's given a lot to do, and he nails it. Karen Gillan's given a little more in a moment, and she does all right with it.
She's good.
She does the right amount, but I think The Rock was struggling. He doesn't. He doesn't do impressions, Dan.
He's not like a bro. Yeah.
Like, that's not what he's there to do. He's there to embody Bravestone, and then have the person living through Bravestone have that great experience. Like, just be The Rock. That's all we need you to do.
Yeah. So that was probably one of my bigger criticisms, was maybe not the best fit, but they're trying to do what they got to do. So those are two very mild recommendations.
My true recommendation financially is that there's a ton of great movies in theaters, and you should probably wait for this to come home, and it'll be a fun movie to watch at home.
Yeah, but I'm not going to tell you not to go out to the theater and see it either. So sure.
Sure, why not?
If you want to, I'm not going to stop you.
So pull quote Jumanji 2 is...
We won't stop you from seeing this film.
We won't physically come to your home and lock your door.
Exactly. So there you go. I agree, though. There are a lot of great movies that are already out. And coming up, well, Roth, this week we've got hopefully a couple more reviews for some of the movies that are coming out in limited release that have got the awards contention going on. And the next week we have a couple of biggies coming out. Star Wars, #1.
Yeah.
And Cats.
Those jellicles.
My most anticipated of 2019.
They're coming at us.
They're coming at us.
Dan, I haven't been on charting with you, but I've been there in spirit, counting down those jellicles, and I am with you, man. It's a 1-2 punch with Star Wars and Cats next week, ladies and gentlemen.
It's going to be quite a week. You can join us for all of the fun here next week, and this week as well. We've got reviews of some great movies coming up. I'm Dan Murrell.
I'm Roth Cornet.
Thanks for watching.